Omar's already ruined the surprise, but
No, I know. What do we do now?
I don't know. Should we just wrap it up?
I'll do more. I'll big him up more. Okay.
Just pretend he hasn't said anything.
Nothing's happened.
Yeah.
Listen, the UK is a global hub for creative excellence in advertising, second only to the US in exporting advertising and marketing services around the world. And at least we're not eating cats and dogs. So there you go. In this next session, the Advertising Association, Stephen Woodford will set out why the industry has built this position, the benefits it brings to the UK's own economy, and what can be done next to further strengthen its position as a leader on the world stage. We've said his name enough. Let's get him on. The CEO of Advertising Association, Stephen Woodford.
Thank you very much for having me on the stage here today. Fantastic to follow two amazing leaders, and I'm going to be talking about a different kind of leadership, and it's a leadership that we're all involved with. So I'm going to ask for a show of hands. So who either works for an international business or does business with international clients? Pretty much, I would say probably 70% of the room. So you are all part of what is an incredible success for the UK, not just for the UK economy, but for the creative services sector. And particularly advertising is one of those industries where we lead the world. And I want to talk about how we do that and why it's particularly important at the moment. And for those who don't know the Advertising Association, we're a trade body that represents the whole of the industry. So all the big trade bodies are members of the AA, all the big commercial media owners are members of the AA. We work with something like 300 different businesses across our industry, both here in the UK and increasingly internationally. And our job is to think about the things that the whole industry wants to see solved or improved or made better. And I'll talk about some of those things in a moment. But really the job at the moment, when you think about the new political landscape, is to get the UK's growth back up again. The UK's been stuttering along with very low growth ever since the financial crisis. So how do we get growth going again? That's something that Labour are working very, very hard on. And we spend a big amount of our time engaging with political leadership. So we love elections. We love the great drama of the change of government. And we are now working very closely with Labour. And this is an example of a conference that we just did, which was the Labour conference up in Liverpool. We did many panel sessions. That's our head of public affairs with Chris Bryant, who's the lead minister for our industry. So we're really engaging with the Labour Party. And we know that Rachel Reeves' mission is to get UK growth up to the fastest in the G7. Now, one of the quickest ways to get growth actually is to boost exports, because getting growth in the domestic economy is very, very difficult and takes a lot of long-term decision-making. So we're looking to get growth particularly from exports. And it's a really great strength for the UK. And something that I think we often underappreciate is the UK is the number 2 soft power in the world after the US. And it's been in that position for a long time. And I think probably people can sort of intuitively think what soft power is. Soft power is the influence that you wield indirectly through the respect or the engagement that people have with your country, with your institutions. And ministers talk a lot about soft power, because actually it's incredibly important in an interconnected world. And Britain's soft power comes from a whole range of things. It comes from things like the Premier League is a big part of our soft power. Advertising is a big part of our soft power. Our creative industries, our theatre, our culture, these are all parts of Britain's soft power. And soft power has a big impact on economic growth. So when you think about the media industry, we've got 3 of the world's top 10 news brands in the UK. So BBC, Guardian, and those of you who were here yesterday would have heard from Rich Cacapulo from the Daily Mail. Brilliant brand that has built a global audience for British news. We do a lot to promote Britain's soft power through advertising. We've really focused that on, in effect, what is the Olympics of advertising, which is Cannes Lions. This is the ad that we ran this year at Cannes Lions. Obviously, we were running at the same time as the Euros, so we love this. 106 lions on a shirt. What we're celebrating there is the UK's long-term performance at Cannes Lions. So we are the second highest country in terms of awards won. US is number 1, but on a per capita basis. And I think when you look at per capita, it's really important. Obviously, the US is 6 times the population of the UK and about 8 times the size of the economy. So on a per capita basis, we win way more lions than any other country. And that's an incredibly important part of that soft power, that creative excellence. And that leads to an incredible £18 billion worth of advertising exports. So all of those sales that you're making, all of that work you're doing with international clients is part of that £18 billion export figure. And this has grown really, really consistently and fast. Before 2012, it wasn't growing. It was around about $2.5 billion a year. So since 2012, so just over 13 years, because that's 2023 data, it's grown that fast. And it's grown that fast. We don't absolutely know why, but the turning point was London 2012. And when you think about that opening ceremony, that was a showcase for British creativity on the global stage. And there was something about that moment. It was a sort of zeitgeist moment that seemed to spark not just growth in advertising creative exports, but all sorts of other creative exports. So UK creativity has been on a growth spurt since London 2012. So that was a fantastic sort of catalytic moment for the industry. We did some work with PwC to understand why this growth was happening. It was having double digits, sometimes 15, 18% a year. So incredibly fast growth in an economy that was growing 1 or 2%. So we did some work with PwC to understand this. And it was a really interesting set of findings. So going back to Cannes Lions, it was creativity. That was the number one attraction for coming to the UK. And that London 2012 moment put UK creativity on a global stage, and it crystallized a lot of those great things. If you think about the ceremony, brought together things like Paddington, it brought together music, and it brought together all sorts of aspects of British culture. And it's those things that have really helped that creative reputation. But it's deeper than that. It actually is our strategic reputation. We have a reputation for being the best strategic brains in the business. And coming from that combination of creativity and strategy, a reputation for really understanding creative effectiveness. And if anybody was at the IPA Effectiveness Awards on Monday, you'll have seen, again, an amazing array of award winners. The IPA Effectiveness Awards are the world's #1 data bank of advertising effectiveness in terms of business success. So that creative reputation, strategy reputation, effectiveness reputation. Also, we're the #1 digital market in the world, so the highest per capita digital ad spend. So we have a huge technological expertise as well. And finally, obviously, the happy accidents of geography, Greenwich Mean Time and the English language mean that we are the perfect place to do international business. So these 5 factors were seen as the key factors driving this incredibly strong growth. So every year we do a big lot of promotion of the UK at Cannes Lions. We celebrate all the winners. We work with a whole series of partners to really promote Britain's creativity. And we only started doing this post-Brexit. We were really worried that post-Brexit, this growth rate was going to stall. And in a way, the big surprise was it didn't. The growth rate was barely affected by Brexit. And that's obviously because advertising is a frictionless trade, so we're not affected by trade restrictions. But we were really worried that Britain's reputation obviously had taken a bit of a battering due to Brexit, that we needed to go out and be on the front foot and promote Britain's great creative exports. So we do a huge amount of work in Cannes Lions, promoting Britain's creative prowess. There's always some great winners. One of the great winners this year of a Gold Lion was Channel 4 for their idents. And we have an amazing story to tell. And I think when you look at the partnership we have leading media owners support that, because those media owners want to support that great British creative story. And what is that? Think about the foundation of that, and it reflects actually what Stephen was saying Susan was saying in those leadership sessions. It's obviously about the people. So why do those global buyers come to the UK? Well, we have a reputation of having the best talent in our industry, and we're doing a lot of work on improving talent in the industry. We've done a huge amount of research. It's been the key mission for our president, Alessandra Bellini, who was the Chief Customer Officer at Tesco. And in fact, we've just launched in partnership with AdWanted, the Marketing and Advertising Training Hub. All the skills and qualifications that you could want in one place. So there's over 500 different courses. So if any of you are looking to develop your careers or anybody in your teams, that's a one-stop shop you can go and look at to think about career development. We have something called the UK Advertising Export Group. So again, we formed this post-Brexit because we thought we've got to really work hard now to sell Britain's wares on the international stage. So about 100 businesses support that group. We have my colleague Aisling Conlon, who's our export director, is in New York this week at Advertising Week New York. In fact, tomorrow night they have a reception at the British Consulate with about 200 people going to that, international buyers. The US remains our #1 export market. And this chap on this huge stage there's an amazing event in Shanghai called the Shanghai International Advertising Festival. We have a long-term partnership with them to promote ties between the Chinese and British advertising industry. That's a guy called Julian Douglas, who's the vice chair of VCCP, who chairs our export group. So we're working really, really hard to get the British message out there. And in fact, we have a delegation from China coming over next week for a day of doing various presentations, and we're signing another MOU with the Chinese. And it's at Chelsea Football Club, because Chelsea Football Club is the #1 Premier League club in China. Has a huge following in China. So the Chinese buyers are incredibly excited to going to Stamford Bridge. So that work, I think, is incredibly important. And I think it's important to also recognise the foundations that we build that global reputation on. And they're really about the core mission of the Ad Association. So our mission is to promote the role and rights of responsible advertising. And we define responsible advertising as being trusted, inclusive, and sustainable. And in those three categories of trust, inclusion, and sustainability, I think we're doing world-leading work. And again, this just helps, in effect, raise the bar for the whole industry and keep our industry in a leadership position across the world. So some of you will be working for companies that are supporting the ASA campaign. So we're now in our third year of promoting the fact that the Advertising Standards Authority regulates all advertising in all media. So thank you to the media owners who support that. I hope a lot of you have taken part in the All In survey. That's coming on March the 12th next year. We do that every 2 years. 19,000 people from our industry took part in that last time around in 2023. It's not only the biggest survey in advertising of all aspects of diversity and inclusion, it's the biggest survey of any industry in the UK. So really important that you take part. We want to get over the 20,000 mark this year, because that data gives us incredibly rich data on how to make our industry more welcoming to everybody, whatever their background is. And finally, we do a program called Ad Net Zero. It started in the UK. It's now running in 10 countries around the world, including the USA. This, I think, in a way, is the most important long-term project that we face. And again, this is another example of UK leadership. This is a UK program exported to the world. And the mission of Ad Net Zero is to decarbonise the advertising supply chain and to in effect, transition from an unsustainable business. We're all part of an unsustainable consumption-based economy. We have to transition the whole of that economy to becoming a sustainable consumption-based economy. And advertising is right at the sharp end of that. And if people look at advertising and think, well, it's not a huge carbon footprint, it's around 3% of global emissions. And that's because of the huge power and energy use in the infrastructure of advertising. And that, of course, is going up at the moment because of the use of AI is driving up some of those emissions. So we've got to work really, really hard to bring down those emissions. We've just launched something called the Global Media Sustainability Framework, which is a global standard for measuring the emissions across all media, across all markets on a consistent basis. So it's that sort of work that we're doing here that we think will keep the UK in the forefront of global reputation and global trade. And I think it's really important that everybody recognises that this, it's something I think to be really proud of, actually, is that we're all part of a British industry that leads the world. There's not many industries where you can say the biggest company is a British one, obviously in WPP, and where we have an unequivocally global leadership position. So please, thank you for all the support that you do in terms of working across all of those international clients. If you're interested, if you have a business that's particularly interested in getting involved in exports, contact us about our exports group, and let's all do all we can to keep Britain as a leader in the global competitive context. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.